So you're saying don't blame your neighbor for your pain. You should join with your neighbor and love your neighbor, even though the establishment wants you to hate your neighbor and might even call your neighbor a Trumper. They're not the person who's responsible for your pain. The people responsible for your pain are Democrats and Republicans who have been running this country for the last 400 years. Go ahead.
My message, I want us to have the same class loyalty that the ruling class have. Like you see capitalists infighting every once in a while, but you see how loyal they are to each other at the end of the day, because you see how Hakeem Jeffries fall in line with their judge. You see how there are a ton of bipartisan deals to cut the military budget, to fund the military budget and get corporate bailouts. Even though they may have small disagreements, they will always come together and get things done. That's what I want from the working class. Even though we may have some random cultural fights, I want us to have a militant love and respect for each other and the willingness to improve each other's material needs. And that's what we need. And the ruling class, they have that solidarity. I just want us to have that. We can fight, we can disagree, but at the end of the day, our material needs is the most important. And I think we should drop any other small cultural disagreements in order to challenge the ruling class. That's what I truly believe. And I think that's the message that MLK brought, and that is the kind of shit that got him killed, and many other radicals that will try and bring people together.
What's poppin', my friends, my family? Welcome back. Welcome to RBN Evening Live. We're going to call this Nick at Night. I think you guys like that name. Welcome, my friends. That was my conversation I had with Jimmy. Always fun going on Jimmy's show, ranting with him. Always a fun show to go on. I always want to make sure I bring the core message, and I try to do this every time I am on a big show, like wherever I go on George Galloway, if I go on Jimmy Dore, if you see me on Glenn Greenwald. I want to bring an unapologetically pro-working class approach. We're going to cover the World Economic Forum. And you see how the capitalist class, they have an unyielding amount of class solidarity. So yeah, Nick at Night, definitely going to be interesting. Going to bring back the old school socialist MMA style conversations. Lot more relaxed, lot more chill. Kind of us breaking down a lot of the major headlines of the day. You guys know I focus mostly on state violence, foreign policy, and the class war, which we're going to cover a lot today. The ruling class is very organized. They have minor capitalist infighting, but they are united. But I want to introduce my guests. One of my favorite people, a friend of the show. I co-founded Ten Demands with Zoya. Zoya is love. Zoya is life. Welcome. You're the guest on the first edition of the Nick at Night program on RBN. Glad to have you with us, my friend Zoya.
Thank you so much, Nick. Wow, what a beautiful introduction as always. And I love what you said in that Jimmy Dore clip. That was very powerful. Definitely resonates very deeply with me.
Yeah, and I want that to be the focus of RBN. Like we are the militant channel that advocates for the workers, advocate for worker unity. We're not going to apologize for where we stand, and I believe that healthy conversation and debate among the workers is important. But at the end of the day, we should love each other and our neighbors despite disagreements. I want the person living next to me down the street, I want everyone to live a grand existence. But capitalism has convinced people to live this individualistic, competitive life where you're looking at how you compare to your neighbor. And you almost like the reason why Americans don't want others to have healthcare, that's a ridiculous idea in other countries, because it's like Americans get off on the idea that I have a better healthcare plan than you. You know what I mean? They don't want it to be an equal playing field. They love the fact that you got to take a Medicare Advantage plan. Meanwhile, they're just balling. And we're going to talk about the World Economic Forum. And this is a great tweet from I'll pull this up here because this is a great sentiment. I want to start with this. This is just a thought. Great account I see on Twitter. The WEF, the World Economic Forum, and their partners are constantly organizing, meeting, planning, and making moves to create the future they desire. Why aren't we? Zoya, why aren't we? Well, because if you look at the media, if you look at the two-party duopoly and how it's designed to keep us fighting. It's designed to keep us focused on trivial nonsense while the capitalist class, while the ruling class focus mostly on power. You have anything you want to add to that, Zoya? And I'll move on to my next part of this.
No, it's exactly what you're saying. But mostly, I was just thinking as you were talking, when I hear people arguing, it's like CNN on one side and Fox News on the other, and they're just recycling rhetoric. So many disagreements in this country, especially, are manufactured. And we have to have conversations like this in order to break through that and make people realize our most important needs we actually agree on. Clean drinking water. That's something everyone agrees on. So why aren't we all pushing for legislation to guarantee clean drinking water for all Americans? I'm so grateful that we have these podcasts as an alternative to mainstream media who tribalizes people and divides them.
Yeah, and that's the very important point. The media see the polls that show even right-wing people agree with us on stuff like healthcare. When you see that 1/3 of people who consider themselves to be ultra-conservative are supportive of defunding the police. When they see that stuff, when they see the uniting of the right and the left calling out the Ukraine war, and even the uniting between the right, who I can only theorize on why some of these people call out Klaus Schwab and the WEF, but they call them out. They call out the war, and now there's like this asserted effort to label anyone who want to work with people they disagree with, whether you're on left or the right, as some sort of red, brown alliance. I was called that so many times. Meanwhile, you have Hakeem Jeffries literally supporting an anti-choice judge in New York. You got Ro Khanna friends with Bill Kristol, Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders friends. So they can make friends. The ruling class can make friends with each other, even though their quote-unquote values could differ by a mile, apparently. But they always have that unity. That's what I want. That's what I want. And when you look at the WF, when they organize Davos, now that a lot of them getting nervous because this is one of them events that used to just slide under the radar. Now a lot of people are like, yo, what the fuck are these capitalists doing meeting every goddamn year? What y'all talking about? What's so important? Now, this is one of them things that prove Marx is correct. This is what Marx has been telling you guys about. The formation and loyalty of capital, the dictatorship of capital. That is what the WEF is. That is what Davos is. A lot of people just now discovering it. I'm glad. We got a lot of people on the right like, oh my God, look at these deep state actors that support the same policy that I support. They're meeting up. It's not anything new. The Rockefellers and their capitalist cabal, the Industrial Revolution and the oligarchs that carved up territory, that made non-competition clauses. This is not new. They formed together the bus unions for hundreds of years. The WEF, the World Economic Forum, is just another example of Marx being right. And some people, they use other language to avoid that. So you probably know what I'm talking about. They use language to avoid what we've been talking about, where you have capitalist dictatorship, you have global capital that will protect their interest over the interest of the working class. The capitalists transcends borders. That's why, as an advocate for the worker, I'm for open borders, because they don't give a fuck about borders. Why should we be hung up on it? A lot of you guys not ready for that conversation, right? The argument always been. Go ahead. Interrupt me anytime, Zoe. Go ahead.
What's scarier to me is, we know what these people's interests are, but what's scarier to me is that the working class is convinced that someone like Hakeem Jeffries is actually progressive. We have millions of Americans that think that this is actually a progressive guy that's going to be fighting for them. And then we have millions of Americans on the other side that think that he's a communist.
Yeah. So, and that's done on purpose. And I don't understand. And I would love to grill the average American that go along with that. But you guys don't think it's on purpose for capitalists to muddy the waters and call Joe Biden a communist? It serves their interest, literally in so many different ways, to rally They're dumb supporters against the politicians, their enemies, right? And also muddy the waters in the race, what it means to be against the capitalist structure, to be actually anti-establishment. The biggest anti-imperialists, the people who are first on anti-imperialism, are always the communists and the Marxists. Communists and Marxists are against NATO on principle. We're against Nazis on principle. We're against the funding the military-industrial complex and the expansion of the imperial capitalist system on principle. I love that right-wingers come to that conclusion. A lot of it because of fiscal conservatism, where they say we shouldn't be spending as much money on the military. I don't care what your reason is, to be honest. I just want you to get there. So I love that, but I want people to understand, like, it's the people who are anti-imperial core and the systems that maintain it. We are the ones who's first. That would lead me to becoming more open to call myself a Marxist, a socialist, because I told you guys I voted for the Green Party in 2016 because of their anti-war stance. So I didn't know what the fucking eco-socialist was. I didn't know what that was. I was like, oh shit, Joe Stein's calling out both parties for being war pigs. The Green Party is extremely about cutting the military budget and ending the wars.
But the propaganda is so strong. We live in a country where the word welfare has been demonized. The word welfare, which is
welfare.
Yeah, and it's a standard in any country by any logic. Here, it has a negative association. Just welfare of our citizens is considered some kind of handout, and they should be pulling themselves up by their bootstraps. This is how deep the propaganda is. They're co-opting all of our language, progressive, revolutionary. The revolution is now voting.
Yeah. Thank you for $5, Jason. Smash the like button if you haven't called a Putin puppet. Let's go. That will give us to like 500 to 1,000 likes immediately.
Yes.
No, in our audience. I would definitely appreciate that if you guys are enjoying this segment of Nick at Night with my friend Zoya is Love. Zoya is Life. I wonder what the hell that was. Zoya is Love, Zoya is Life with me tonight. Still got a lot to cover. Thank you for the super chat. Feel free to leave more. And I can cover y'all chats. You guys can ask any questions. You guys also can support the show via Patreon. I got the link in the description, direct donation as well. So this is the World Economic Forum website. It's obviously filled with a bunch of bullshit platitudes, but they pride themselves on their secrecy. You have a bunch of these journalists, which shows you the connection and corruption of our system. You got people in the Washington Post, the New York Times, all these giant media heads. You got people in the BBC invited to these events and to the WEF in Davos. And there was always this culture where, yes, we are inviting you because you're status, but you don't talk about what we're saying here. That was like the long-standing tradition. And now there have been more media reporting on this in the last few years, where people are like, yo, why do we got journalists going in an economic forum with global leaders? Like, you're going to see leaders speaking here. I'm going to show you guys a few clips. All of them calling for more war, by the way. Talk about a new industrial revolution, a new way of living. And they talk about all these issues with the clear elephant in the room that a lot of these issues will be solved if we eat the rich. That you guys are responsible for a lot of these issues and problems, like climate change. How many of you guys got here on a jet, private jet? The top 1% responsible for 71% plus of all the global emissions. But these motherfuckers come up here and they're like, we gotta do our best to fight against climate change. I'm gonna show you guys some clips. People here are calling for more weapons to Ukraine. What is the carbon footprint for that? What they like? We gotta address the issue of climate change, but we got to produce more weapons for war. Those things don't add up. That's why these people do unimaginable harm to any climate justice movement, because the liberal ideology, the Democratic Party, the capitalist goons, they are responsible for the destruction of the global working class. They are responsible for the droughts that we see in Africa, the displacements of people, the losses of species, the fishing markets in Southeast Asia that are being destabilized. And the most fucked up thing is the people who feel the effects of the climate crisis the most are people who don't profit from the industrialization that these people have. So then these people who made billions of dollars, they stole the wealth of the global working class. They then go to developing countries and say, you guys can't industrialize. You guys got to go vegan. You guys got to make sacrifices. Even though we enriched ourselves and we are making the most carbon emissions. So, and you guys see why people roll their eyes at any mention of climate justice now? Because these bastards hijacked it. There is no such thing as climate justice without class war. You guys understand? No such thing. That is you're just doing gardening if you're talking about climate action without class war. So I don't think the workers should make sacrifices. I think we should eat the rich, dismantle the military-industrial complex because they're responsible for the climate issues. But I was trying to remember the original. Like, these people set me off. I got a lot of receipts to show you guys because the WF proves what Marxists have said: the collection of capital and how they rule in their interest, not in yours. They talk about all these issues, ignoring the elephant in the room, the elephant that is their capital. I'm gonna show you guys this bullshit, and this is the least democratic way to run stuff. To have these elites do these massive planning systems. Let me show you guys this, and I want to get your reaction as well, Zoya. And then we're gonna get to some Ukraine because today you had Zelensky that was essentially giving a speech. They were talking at the WF. They was calling for more tanks. You had the Prime Minister, I believe Finland, wasn't it? Who was saying that Ukraine must win this war. I'm gonna show you guys that. Kissinger said that Ukraine should join NATO. It was a whole Ukraine massive jerk-off session on the World Economic Forum. A bunch of people cheering for war like psychopaths. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me show you guys this video here. Feel free to interrupt anytime, Zoya. Look at these scumbags, virtue signalers of the highest order, stand up here talking about all these problems. We got all these problems. Surely we're not responsible for any of them. Let's listen.
Dear friends, scientifically, this is not a climate crisis. We are now facing something deeper. Mass extinction, air pollution, undermining ecosystem functions, really putting humanity's future at risk.
But we're going to call for more weapons and the expansion of the military-industrial complex, the larger polluter on the planet. We're going to talk about this issue. We're going to talk about the issue of climate, pretend we're on the right side of the issue, even though we are the largest emitters with our private jets flying in. We just want you, the workers, to make sacrifices. We're gonna look at Africa. We're going to look at South America, and we're going to tell them to shut down their industrialization. We're going to punish countries who have not reached our status yet. And not about us. And as a climate movement, there got to be much more vocal opposition to these people. Because these people getting out in front on this issue has hurt the credibility of the climate justice movement. There are a lot of people looking side-eyed at it now. Because you got a lot of these people that are pushing mandates, who are big pharma simps, who also repeat this climate bullshit they do. Just like with the big pharma and the mandate issue, it was not based on the perspective of the worker. At RBN, we said we oppose mandates because that's obviously anti-worker. That's what the ACLU agreed on. You have Black Lives Matter. They were saying this is a deeply anti-Black issue. And we agreed. So just like that, we address the climate issue the same way. The people that shouldn't be making sacrifices are not the people whose water is poisoned because of these capitalists. Not the people who've been displaced because of the wars of these capitalists. It should be, they should make all the sacrifices first. Get rid of your private jets. Get rid of your multiple cars. Forfeit 90% of your wealth. Then Talk to me about going vegan. How about that? Let's finish what you have to say, and then you can chime in after this video clip.
This is a planetary crisis.
This is a safety crisis, but above all, it is also a justice crisis.
If this was a justice crisis, we would be prosecuting you guys, the top 1%, that pillaged and destroyed Africa, the Middle East. And now they're looking at them and they want them to make sacrifices. They don't want to prosecute the Chevron CEOs, the big oil CEOs who lied about this. There's no conversation about any of that. Because it's already too late. It's already too late to stop the climate crisis. So we might as well go after the people who caused it. That's my mindset. Let's continue.
Many areas in the world are uninhabitable. This uninhabitable zone is increasing. If we continue with our greenhouse gas emissions, then by 2070, as many as 3 billion people will live in uninhabitable zones.
Dear friends,
So Zoya, you have anything you want to add to that? And before I move on to the next part, and I guess I'll do a quick.
I don't. It just has this vibe of like Hitler lecturing people on human rights.
Yes.
They have such cognitive dissonance. It's exactly like you were saying. They're the ones creating the problems, but this blame shifting onto us is very deliberate. Even the recycling industry was actually started by corporations that were polluting, and they were getting pressure from leftists to be more clean. So instead, they came up with a whole recycling program, which most of the things that you put into the recycling does not get recycled.
Yeah.
But that was a way to shift the onus onto the consumer. And that's what they always want to do.
And that's why you see a lot of mistrust among the working class when you hear when they hear the liberal climate agenda, because they know they're full of shit. Like I had a conversation with these same people. I see people who say it's a climate hoax, but they hear what I have to say, but they're not opposed to it because it makes sense. Like, yeah, how the fuck is the top 1% going to tell us what we should do while you guys are driving in private jets? I'm not trying to pick on Taylor Swift, but she's one of the best examples. Taylor Swift is like one of these big green people, climate people. But she literally is responsible for more CO2 emissions than the entirety of the American working class because how much she flies because of her work and her travel, right? So people see her like, oh my God, we got to start recycling. We got to go vegan for climate. Then like, bitch, you fly a private jet. The only people that are consistent on this is Marxists, I believe. That's why when people see the WEF, Davos people, virtue signal over this, even though they got generational wealth and benefited over the lies that came from big oil in the industrial capitalist age. But then they want to pretend they're the moral people in the room. That it's only the far right that climate denialists. If you are for funding weapons to Ukraine, which will increase the carbon footprint of the military industrial complex, aka the NATO left, Bernie Sanders, AOC and the squad, you are not serious about the climate change problem. I said that this is the things. This is what we understood years ago. This is why I like the Green Platform, because they said straight up, we support cutting the military budget by 75% because anything less is unserious. Unserious.
Even right now, one of their top strategies is to tell people to buy electric vehicles, and those are incredibly expensive. So we're priced out. The people who need it most are always priced out. The people who care most are not given any options that are financially feasible for them to implement. So it's constantly a class issue. There's no way for us to exist in the system without contributing to the pollution, and that's by design.
The answer of capitalists and morons like Pete Buttigieg is, come on, we gotta fight the climate issue. Let's go buy a $30,000 car at base. Like I see you so car. Hybrids are expensive as shit. And for one, you look at the pollution that the battery is responsible for. This is not a solution. It's a giant hoax. It's a giant hoax. That is not the. How about we have actual well-planned cities that is walkable? How about we have public transportation? They're trying to do everything they can to talk about the real solutions to their problems, the ridiculously planned cities that we have.
And they vilify the countries that are successfully doing it. Costs in China.
Yeah, trying to make it look like chumps with their high speed.
They're living like the Jetsons over there. Meanwhile, we're told here that it's impossible and the bridges are crumbling. And one of the latest statistics says that 140 million Americans, which is almost half the country, is food insecure. They don't have money for an emergency anymore. And they want them to go out and buy fancy, expensive electric cars.
People who just says that with a straight face. With a straight face, he says, "Oh, we just need more people to invest in electric vehicles."
That might be our next president.
I'm so glad that Joe Biden gave him this job. Like this job as transportation secretary really harmed his credibility. Like that what happens in Democratic Party politics. Like you can rise through meritocracy if you're mediocre, as long as you're loyal to the party line. But that hurts a lot of them because they propelled Stacey Abrams, Beto O'Rourke to superstardom, despite the fact they were grossly mediocre. They did that because they endorsed Biden and they were loyal to the Democratic Party and Hillary Clinton. So then, because they were propelled so fast, their mediocrity was shown, and now they're unelectable. They lost 2 straight elections. The same with Pete Buttigieg. He propelled so fast, and he was exposed as incompetent, as many activists was calling him out as based on his time as mayor. Same with Kamala Harris, proposed to propel the vice presidency, but now her career is essentially over. She's never getting over. Like she is deeply, deeply unpopular. But thank you for the $2, Raka. Thank you for $2 for the eco-fascist super chat here. But let's get back to the World Economic Forum. I'm gonna show you guys Klaus Schwab, who literally comes from Nazis. Not exaggerating. Me and Zoya, we had a conversation before. Like the new leaders of the quote-unquote free world, the Western society, they literally come from Nazis. NATO is a Nazi organization. Klaus Schwab, directly lineage to Nazis. And this is him pretty much describing the capitalist dictatorship that you live in. That right-wingers are trying their best to call these people out without saying what it really is. So they got make-up terms like globalists and other bullshit. The people who are capitalists, they're imperialists. You had Elon Musk. I'm going to show you guys some receipts. Elon Musk was like, oh my God, the WEF is so evil. They're non-democratic. They are a global order. Like, shut the fuck up. For one, you take contracts from the military-industrial complex. Minpress News had a great story showing how Elon Musk is helping the establishment with the regime change operations in Iran. His Starlink system. But he won't pretend he's not part of the system. In order to become a billionaire like Elon Musk, in order to become accepted in this cult, you have to be accumulated in the system, right? Anyway, let me play this. I'm gonna fix the audio here, and I'm gonna let you guys hear Klaus Schwab explain the capitalist dictatorship that we live in. Where I'll read the headline here. It said Klaus Schwab says the world will no longer be run by superpowers like America. It will be run by World Economic Forum stakeholders, such as BlackRock and Bill Gates. Doesn't that sound grand, Zoya? Upgrade, the future society that we all been looking for.
Oh, yeah, the leaders I've been hoping for.
Let's listen to him say it himself and then we can react.
Who will really command the fourth industrial revolution and its technology like?
And this guy is literally the funniest guy ever. Like
he's like a super villain.
Yes, you read my mind. Maybe it was super obvious, but this guy is literally a Dr. Evil super villain. And I swear to God, he knows that's his reputation and he embraces it. Listen to how he speaks. Listen, like no normal person speaks the way this guy does.
Who will really command the fourth industrial revolution and its technology like artificial intelligence?
What's your sense of who's best placed at this time to lead the world into the fourth industrial revolution? Because you pretty much created this term. We're seeing the kind of technological strides that China has made with Huawei, with the 5G technology. Do you believe that this could potentially be China's time once again?
I also want to point out, watching a lot of these clips from Davos here, they bring up China all the time. Like, they keep asking these people in roundabout ways, like, "Yo, what's your take on China being our ass?" Anyway, I just thought it was funny. And the rise of China is the biggest threat to these people. You call me biased if you want, but as an anti-imperialist, I'm rooting against all of these world economic elite motherfuckers. All these Davos people I'm rooting for against. And I'm gonna show you guys some more receipts here. They are all rabidly anti-China. So they're anti-China. I'm supportive of their enemies. Let's continue.
We should make here again let's say a differentiation. On the one hand, we have state capitalism. On the other hand, we have shareholder or private capitalism. So it's a clash between two systems. I believe that state capitalism in the short term provides certain advantages, because you can mobilize in a concentrated way a lot of resources to reach a specific objective. But I believe that the future is not state capitalism or shareholder capitalism. The future is what I call stakeholder capitalism, which is combined with a social responsibility.
So he said, let's just go back to feudalism. This dude, how can you want to, like, you literally cannot make a character better in this guy.
Not only that, but what they're effectively saying for BlackRock and Bill Gates to be running our lives. If I would tell you that this actually happened, you would think it's a conspiracy theory.
Yeah, they just do it now. Out in the
Yeah.
open. Out in the open.
And people just take it. We're so complicit. They have us so distracted. These devices, everything. And the next generation's even worse. They're so attached to their devices that they just are tuned out of anything happening in the real world.
Yeah, man. The ruling class is lucky that we got a ton of creative people who's good at making great entertainment, good at pacifying people. Because I think that's the only thing holding people back. Like, if Netflix go down, if PlayStation crash, it's over, bro. A lot of people just chilling, like, man, as long as I got my Netflix, I'm good.
And entertainment is America's #1 export. So we're exporting the propaganda. That's how good it is.
Hey, I'm a part of the fun left. I hate the no fun left. The people like, it's all about nothing but the revolution. Like, nah, Zoe, I know your lifestyle. We all about having fun here, but we gotta keep our eyes on the ball. We gotta keep our eyes on increasing the quality of life, not allowing them to tranquilize us. But I think there's nothing wrong with enjoying entertainment. But I think a lot of people just pacify, not moving. They just want to continue to be a cog in the machine and watch the Netflix. But I want to show you guys this, because this is the Industrial Revolution.
Can I just add on that topic? I think it's so important to have nuance. On a lot of things, people either expect you to be for something or against something. I'm saying, watch everything through a critical lens and be informed. It's really important for our mental health to be able to relax and have fun. So definitely do that, but balance it with, the ancient art of reading or spending quality time with your loved ones, or actually doing some community organizing. Just don't let it distract you to a point of apathy.
I think the revolution need to have some soul. I think we should have barbecues in the mix of it. Have fun. That was one of the quotes I love from Dr. Cornell was, we need to have soul. What's the point of this? If you're not having soul, you're not having fun. You don't have anything to live for. You know what I mean? I think we all connected together in order to enhance what life is supposed to be about. But in this capitalist rat race, it's not. A lot of people forget about that. That's why you see people, they grow older, and then once they retire, they get really depressed. Then they feel like they gotta get another job because their identity is working instead of just living. You know what I mean? Work to live, and all that stuff. Anyway, let's get into my motivational bullshit. Let's Ursula von der Leyen, one of my favorite psychopaths, talk about unelected bureaucrat at the EU. She gave a speech at the WEF Davos event, and I'll pull up here. This is what you talk about the new great industrial transformation, and Klaus Schwab is the one I believe who coined the term the fourth industrial revolution that they're planning that you have no say in. You owe nothing, you will like it. Those are the people that they plant these reports and post in the Washington Post and other capitalist media where they say, you know what, studies find that eating bugs is not that bad. That probably should be the future. Just planting stuff out there. Get ready to eat bugs. Get ready not to own anything. That's the new industrial revolution that they're prepared for. So let's hear from her. She's another psychopath who easily could be a villain. Like whenever I hear her speak, I get chills down my spine. I mean, like these are the men. Like growing up, if you heard the man, like I think of Klaus Schwab and Ursula von der Leyen, the scariest white people we ever see in my life. I'm sorry, but let me. I will turn the audio on. Let's actually hear from her. Thank you for the $2, JM. I see you. Big shout out to you there. But let's get into this video. Let's hear it from her.
And the next decades will see the greatest industrial transformation of our times, maybe of any times. And those who develop and manufacture the technology that will be the foundation of tomorrow's economy will have the greatest competitive edge. So the scale of the opportunity is clear for all to see.
So, like when you see these capitalists get together talk about the new industrial transformation, that should make anyone nervous. This is them earlier talking about the planetary crisis and all this crisis that they don't have any solution for. But also, one big theme of this, not only them just getting around together, virtue signaling, talking about all these problems they're not going to solve, talk about this great industrial revolution that's going to happen that we are supposed to be excited for, even though they're essentially collecting, commoditing wealth, right? So let's show you some messaging regarding the Ukraine war. You had a lot of people at Davos event that was reinforcing their support because last year this was a very big theme as well. So let's hear this message. This is Sana, and this is what they've been saying. Let's see. Click this. Let's click this one here. This is the Finnish Prime Minister. This is what I mentioned earlier, where she pledged her support for Ukraine. This person here is a psychopath. Like she's played a big role. I did a lot of great reporting on this, on getting Finland into NATO, which was purposely crossing a Russia red line and broke a contract and agreements that Finland had with Russia that spanned decades. This person, she probably everyone on side this new young female Finnish prime minister. She probably this new era of progressive female leaders. Meanwhile, she's leading the charge for a never-ending war. You guys see how the liberals adjusted? I explained this on Jimmy as well. They take people of color, they take black people, and now they got women, and they turn them into the warmongers and the war criminals. So let me show this. I always gotta make sure.
But think of the inclusivity, Nick.
It's Slay Queen. They love that she's the one that get to drive us to World War III. Does it sound like these people have our interests at heart? Let's listen to this.
We don't know when the war will end, but we have to make sure that it will end. Ukrainians win. I don't think that there's any other choice. If Russia would win the war, then we would only see decades of this kind of behavior ahead of us. I think other countries are looking very closely what is happening now in Ukraine. And if Russia would win, then it would send a message that you can invade another country, you can attack another country, and you can gain from that. We don't know.
You see how they are trying their best to rewrite history? This is another reason why I oppose their agenda. You want to know who gave the signal that it was okay to invade other countries? I don't know. Because the United States and Iraq, the invasion of Iraq, I don't know. That's something that comes up. NATO and Yugoslavia. The United States is currently occupying 80% of Syria right now. This is a great tweet from Hassan. Wonder why she didn't mention the U.S. NATO invasion of Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, and Libya. You also had the genocidal occupation of the Palestinian people by Israel. You guys see how this new axis of evil is, they are responsible for pushing this propaganda and trying to pretend that Russia is this unique threat, even though they are the biggest war criminals. They have the moral high ground over nobody. And remember, this is coming from, I still remember when she was first elected. They were like, oh my God, a new progressive female prime minister. Her in Sweden, they're both neocons that have been angling to get their countries into NATO despite left resistance. Democracy Now! Did a segment on this. I covered this months ago. How you had anti-war activists in Finland and Sweden that was begging their now liberal establishment that we don't want to join NATO because that would put them in more at risk. But they was lying to the public, saying that, oh my God, Russia may invade any moment now. We got to join NATO to protect us. That makes no sense. When when Russia's ask was to go back to the Minsk Accord for the retraction of NATO, for NATO to stop expanding. But they say, well, we can stop Russia aggression and we join NATO. So anti-war activists in the left in Sweden and Finland, they understood it made no sense. But just like in the West, just like in the UK, you have Finland and Sweden that was bombarded with massive amount of propaganda, anti-Russian propaganda, pro-NATO propaganda, and then you still had like 50% of the country that was opposed to NATO expansion, and that was the anti-war left. One of them was featured on Democracy Now! Zoya, any response? I'm gonna show you guys.
I think it would be a great time to play the clip I sent you from Lavrov to counter what she's saying.
Oh yeah, let's play that. Let's play that. Good. Yeah, let's play that. I saw you said that earlier. Let's see which one.
It's right after you sent me the StreamYard link.
All right, Zoya with it. Damn, you got a lot of receipts in. We gotta go through all these eventually. Nick and Nike, Zoya's love. I probably got to bug you on Wednesdays a lot. So this is Lavrov, and I saw transcripts of this. I actually never heard him say it, but we can read it out loud because I'm sure this is in Russian.
Большинство европейских стран бросило их против Советского Союза.
Yeah, this is in Russian, so I'll just load the audio and read it out. So this is Lavrov. He said, like Napoleon, who mobilized almost the whole of Europe against the Russian Empire, like Hitler, who mobilized, captured, and mustered the majority of European countries and threw them against the Soviet Union. Likewise, the United States formed a coalition with almost all Europeans. Zoya, isn't this exactly what I've been saying?
Oh, yes.
This is why Putin has a high approval rating.
I actually heard you write his speeches, Nick.
You said what?
I heard you write his speeches since you're a Putin puppet.
Yeah, you know, we saw a few troll comments that was like, RBN is a Russian troll farm. I'm like, what the fuck? It's only whenever you talk about facts in history, they gotta say you repeating Russian propaganda. Like, it's so obvious to anyone who is not their mind not completely colonized. And they don't share, and the mainstream media would never air this speech. They never air Putin giving his grievances about the West, lying to him over and over again, because their job is to keep people as uninformed as possible. They will just say Putin's evil, that he's some crazy dictator and tyrant, that against the will of the Russian people, he launched a war against Ukraine. Ignoring the fact that you had a Russian right that have been edging Putin to do this, that have been criticizing him for not going harder on the war. The reason why Putin has a 75%, 80% approval rating, depending on where you're looking at, is because Russians know their history. The Western world has been told that Putin woke up one day and randomly snapped. There's no historical context. That's what Matt Dutch wants you to believe. No historical context at all. Just Putin holding the country hostage. He just snapped one day. They are doing their best not to humanize the Russian people. There are people, and Zoya probably can speak on this more than I can. In Russia, everyone can link to a grandparent or a friend of a grandparent who died in World War II because of Nazis. We talk about
Absolutely.
tens of millions of people, tens of millions of people who died fighting Nazis. They all linked it. They all can link. Anyone can link a family member. They're not even that long ago. And then you go a generation or two before that, you got Napoleon, the French invasions. So then the people before World War II, they could trace the people who died under Napoleon. So you got people who have this massive trauma of being invaded through Ukraine. And then people in the West is like, oh my God, Russia has no reason to be worried about European encroachment on their border. Get the fuck out of here. You guys want us to accept that.
And Russians are so well educated because under the Soviet Union, we had free education. So we were some of the most educated people on earth, factually speaking. And that's why propaganda won't work so easily on the Russian people.
Meanwhile, our education is fucking ass. I had to throw out everything I ever learned in my entire life. Like once I like 21, 22, start learning shit, start realizing I had shit-lib tendencies. I'm like, hell nah. Everything gotta go. Everything gotta. That's why I call it decolonizing your mind. Like I don't trust anything they say. Like that's my
because when Americans hear NATO, a lot of Americans think, oh, peacekeeping troops. But in Russia, people know that NATO is what invades other countries. They know who bombed Yugoslavia. They know the consequences of NATO, and they know that they are anything but peacekeeping. So as they have NATO try to install weapons on their borders, they're forced to react.
So let's finish this here. We only about 15 seconds in. This is good so far. I'll continue from here. He said, likewise, now the United States form a coalition with almost all Europeans. And this is before this, he brought up Hitler, who mobilized, captured, mustered the majority of European countries. He said now the United States is doing that. So let's continue from where he left off here. Let's see, what's the next one? Here we go. That are part of NATO and not only are also members of the European Union. And through Ukraine as a proxy, lead the war against our country. With the same exact goal, the goal of the final solution to the Russian question. And he said this and I'm not exaggerating. Imagine being Russian and watching MSNBC and Morning Joe. Well, I have seen many of them say that this war only ends once Russia is destroyed. It ends once Putin kills himself or is killed. They want Russia to crush and destroy, and Russians see this. So if you want to say this hyperbole, I wouldn't. Based on what I've seen alone, imagine them doing op-ed on us, right? And they hearing the insane shit that's published in the New York Times editorial all the time.
If you read what's currently in the mainstream lens for how they are dehumanizing Russians, and you insert anyone else, any other Mexicans, Germans, insert it's really unspeakable. Like it's just I'm seeing a lot of people say Russians must be destroyed.
Yeah.
Can you imagine being Russian and hearing that? It's just normalized now. There's derogatory terminology for Russians, vodniks, and other terms. I try to report it on Twitter, nothing. It's not considered hate speech to insult Russian people right now.
They literally changed the rule. They used to say you can't call for the death of anyone. That's a hate crime or whatever. They said, oh, we can call for the death of Russian people now. Like being a leftist is watching the West go insane, and then people call you crazy for calling it out. Let's continue. So pretty much he compared the West hatred to Russia and to Hitler. Now, if you read the Western politicians, so just like I say, he said, bro, if you guys see what these motherfuckers are saying, that's a nice version. He'd be like, bro, have you seen what these people have said about us? He's talking about how they say that Russia must suffer a strategic defeat. He's talking about the publication. Yes, so this is literally what I just said. In the publication you got, they literally call for the dismantlement of Russia too. This guy said it, they say it's necessary to decolonize Russia, which is true. I'm glad he said it because I do a lot of oppo for you guys, and I see it all the time. These unhinged takes by the people that share by the Morning Joe audience and the like.
But what she said in the previous clip, I'm seeing a lot of that going around. A lot of politicians, they got their talking point that Russia cannot win, that Russia winning is somehow a threat to all of us, so Russia cannot be allowed to win. They're manufacturing consent to escalate, which, by the way, sending in Patriot missiles and right now training Ukrainians on American soil in Oklahoma to use those Patriot missiles. U.S. is also training Ukrainian troops, already thousands, in Germany, and they're sending in Abrams tanks next, which are a highly offensive weapon. So all of this is leading to justify the escalation that's already been pre-approved.
Yeah, and I want to show you guys this is Henry Kissinger going back to the World Economic Forum. We saw the Prime Minister of Finland saying that Russia must win, doesn't matter how long it takes. Here, a war criminal who also get an invite to Davos. Like, doesn't matter. You see how there's like no morality involved here. You see how as long as you're loyal to our class, you're invited. This guy is like 25 years older than my grandpa was when he died. Like, these people live forever, man. This is the kind of shit that gives me hatred towards these people. The working class live young, die young. Meanwhile, people like Henry Kissinger will never fucking die. We stuck with Barack Obama for at least another 40 years, guys. Jesus fucking Christ. Let's listen to Henry Kissinger put us up.
The United States has supported Ukrainian resistance, should continue to support, and if necessary, intensify its military support.
Wow, this dude's barely alive, isn't he? Man, they need subtitles for this guy. This dude is literally fucking.
He sounds like Darth Vader.
This dude is fucking literally about to die any moment now. And I don't want to hear any of you guys say I'm being mean. Fuck this guy. Man, they need subtitles for this. I can barely understand them.
Until they ceasefire line.
Bro, this is what you sound like when you know you did unbelievable amount of evil. Like, this is like karma on your soul that transform your voice box. That make you sound like this. Like, you don't sound like this unless you're evil as fuck. I know a lot of old people. I'm sure you do. So I know no one who sounds like fucking Darth Vader.
No one.
This is what pure evil does to you. It does that to your damn soul, man.
It's either reached.
I'm sorry. This is I literally read it. I didn't watch this. This is derailing the whole part of the statement. This is hilarious. This guy he sounds like clearly an evil, like vampire almost. Like, Jesus fucking Christ.
It's surreal.
Between him and Klaus Schwab, is like they really get into the character. They really must love the disdain that the working class have for them.
Or accepted in some preliminary discussions before this war. I was opposed to membership of Ukraine.
Okay, so this explains a lot, because I was wondering, because Kissinger said that Ukraine shouldn't join NATO before the war, and now he gave a speech and said that they should. Now he's about to explain it. So let's listen to this part.
The check cleared.
The check cleared, yeah. So if you guys didn't hear that part, this is the part I really want to hear, because I want to hear him explain why he had to change of heart, even though we know this guy not really a good faith actor. Let's listen.
In NATO, because I feared that it would start exactly the process that we are seeing now. Now that this process has reached this level, the idea of a neutral Ukraine under these conditions is no longer meaningful. And at the end of the process that I described, it ought to be guaranteed by NATO in whatever forms NATO can develop. But I believe Ukrainian membership in NATO would be an appropriate outcome.
Someone puts this man down a flight of stairs, man. Come on, man. That don't make any sense. Because he said, at first I was against Ukraine joining NATO because I didn't want this to escalate to a full-fledged conflict. But he like, given the state that we're in, having anything other than neutral Ukraine is unacceptable. That's what he said, didn't it? That makes no sense. Now, more than ever, now that this war is escalating, now that Russia it's been reported that they're about sending like 500,000 more troops to Ukraine. Now is the time to negotiate. Now is always the best time. Like whether you're talking about the first 3 months into the war was the best time to negotiate. Then 6 months later was the best time to negotiate. With war, now is always the best time to negotiate. That's the rule. Now is a good time. But they're saying, and this is the message that comes from the elite, they say now will be a bad time for Ukraine to negotiate with Russia because Russia just took the city of Soledar, right? So Russia took Soledar. Russia made a lot of gains. So now they say it's a bad time because now that will reward Russia for their aggression. But rewind literally 2 months ago, Zoya.
Yeah.
When the Ukrainian offensive.
While they're warmongering like this and just escalating, there's never going to be a good time. When at the start of this conflict, Ukraine had 45 million people. 15 million people have already fled. 11 million to Europe, 4 million to Russia, and these are UN figures. And 9 million people are in the annexed territories. So if the conflict magically even ended today, Ukraine would have a population of 21 million out of 45 at the beginning. So while they keep saying that now's not a good time, this country is going to be wrecked for decades to come. It was already the poorest country in Europe. Now the population has already been reduced to less than half. We have 100,000 confirmed dead. More likely, it's 400,000 confirmed dead. And all they want is just more blood while they push their military equipment.
And this is from Anthony Blinken. The Ukraine war likely to go on for some time. So Taiwan, I hope you listen. I hope you're looking at what's going on. Ukraine is completely sacrificed now. It's done. It's gone. They already in. They are not planning to give up to, like, there's massive casualties. So Ukraine is unrecognizable as a state. They already went so far into this war. Ukraine is not going to be what it once was. Like the Ukraine you guys knew pre-2020, 2021. I mean, it's gone. Should not happen no more. Russia say they're going to continue to their annexed territories in the east is acknowledged. And after this division and this fighting, this escalation, Ukrainians killing Ukrainians, the war crimes committed by the Azov Battalion against people who were quote unquote Russian sympathizers. After all the crimes, and you can bring up the Russian crimes if you want as well, but especially after the crimes that the Ukrainians committed on their own people, Ukraine would never be healed as a state again. Am I correct? So you know more about this than I am, but that's not like that's you're not gonna go back to Ukraine as it is before.
Never. Well, what country that's been liberated by Americans has ever gone back to how it was? Look at life in Iraq. Look at life in Libya. Look at life in any war territory. And even right now in Syria, which was brought up earlier, we are still in Syria and we are stealing 66,000 barrels of oil every day out of a total production of 80,000 barrels of oil. All of the countries that America touches are devastated afterwards. The US government has killed over 20 million people in 37 nations, bullied, sanctioned, overthrew, and robbed half the world. Now everyone is joining the multipolar order, ending US dollar dominance. And recent reports even say that China and Saudi Arabia are planning to release their own currency, the petro yuan.
Yep.
So this is America's last dying breaths, like fighting to stay relevant, and they're willing to sacrifice every Ukrainian to do it.
Yeah, and they're already getting ready to go war with China. They're doing preparation with Japan. There's a lot of talk among NATO allies that we need to start preparing for future conflict with China. So that's all they have is war.
That's why you see them in Davos, China mongering, I call it. You know, every other person is like, you know, watch out for China. They have good public transportation. They must be stopped.
Look at this video of Zelensky. I know you probably saw this, where this is an old speech of Putin. Look at this. In Paris 2019, Putin talks about the need for consistent implementation of the Minsk agreements, introduce a special status for the Donbass as provided for the Minsk agreement, and look at Zelensky's expression. This is definitely a guilty guy, isn't it?
Необходимо, конечно, продлить срок действия договора об особом статусе отдельных регионов Донбасса. И в конечном итоге придать этой норме постоянный характер, как это и предусмотрено в Минских соглашениях.
I'm telling you, history is not going to be kind to Zelensky. They can have him at the Golden Globes. They can have him speak at Congress all they want. But this is a guy who led his people to war. He was warned about this. I'll show you. Spanish TV, India TV have done segments talking about the Minsk agreement and how NATO and the West lied. So this lie that has been put by the West is only being spread among them and their allies. They're in a giant circle jerk. They're in an echo chamber where you have a group of friends who gossiping among themselves, spreading lies. Meanwhile, everyone else in the school is like, yo, we know you guys are lying. We know you're gossiping. Why do you think Africa's not falling for this? Why do you guys think the global south is not falling for this? Why do you guys think that 80% of the global population is not falling for this? India and the United States has had a falling off recently because India is like, we're not going to sacrifice our best interest for you guys in your conflict in Ukraine. We have no problem with Russia, despite what you guys want us to feel. That's what Lula is saying. Lula wanted to spend on the relationship with China and Russia and BRICS, not listening to the West nonsense. They're on the losing side. That is why they're desperate. On Davos, you literally had Zelensky bragging about the tanks that he's been given, but also demanding for more tanks. And now we all know that tanks is not a defensive weapon. We covered this on the Nick and CJ show. I'm going to show you guys this. This is another example of the West obviously being a proxy war. And they'll call you a conspiracy theorist for saying that, but it's obviously a proxy war. And this war is not defensive. It's not defensive. Look at this. This is from the New York Times was reporting on this. The United States considering helping Ukraine strike Crimea. Bruh. The United States and the Biden administration is considering supporting such attacks, even if it risks major escalation.
And mind you, according to UN provisions, the people of the Crimean territory took a vote to secede. This is a legal action.
Yes. This is unbelievable. I saw this before the show. I had to throw this near the end because I think this is very, like, I don't know
I'll tell you another thing. You know, if anyone ever is watching Putin's speeches, which you can find them and, you know, captions, he's the one constantly discussing diplomacy. while the American NATO side is always talking about escalation and manufacturing fear that there's going to be a global war coming. Russia can't be allowed to it. It just can't happen.
I'll read the first few paragraphs here. And this is why we have the extreme militant take. I won't call it extreme, but it's just the militant take we need against the NATO left. Like, we're not at RBN, we're not buying this shit where you guys say that they are our closest allies. Like, if you're funding this war, if you're not speaking out against this in particular, you're being complicit. Bernie Sanders and the squad is complicit with this shit. The entirety of the European quote unquote progressive politicians, like you have Finland and Sweden, they also as progressive. They are supportive of this new global war. Like, this is insane. The New York Times
and our take is pro-climate, like you were talking about earlier. It's ideologically just inconsistent to be pro-war and pro-climate. You can't do both. So anybody that cares about the future of our planet is going to be naturally anti-war. I don't think our take is extreme. I think it's just logical, and we're consistent.
Yeah, of course. Like, these are the contradictions that leftists bring to liberals that they can't take. That's why they have extreme disdain, and we are the biggest threat to their ideology. They love conservatives. They can dance with conservatives, play the red blue dance. It's the Marxists, it's the leftists. They're the true threat of the liberal world order and their talking points. But this is from this article, and this is why the Biden administration, the Democratic Party that support this literally unanimously. Who's the rogue voice in the Democratic Party speaking out against Ukraine funding and escalating against Russia? Not a goddamn one. Including your beloved, quote-unquote, best we have politician, the Progressive Caucus. The New York Times reported Wednesday that the U.S. is warming to the idea of helping Ukraine strike Crimea, something that the Biden administration had previously avoided due to the risk of provoking a major response from Russian President Vladimir Putin. Citing unnamed U.S. officials, the report said that after months of discussions with Ukrainian officials, the administration is now starting to concede that Kyiv may need the power to strike the Russian sanctuary, even if such a move increased the risk of escalation. Unbelievable. Biden is still holding off sending longer range missiles that could hit Crimea, hit targets in Crimea that Ukraine is seeking. But the U.S. is discussing with Ukrainian officials how to attack the land bridge to Crimea Russia has secured for itself using U.S. provided weapons. And then if Russia was to respond, they'll say Russia's being unhinged. Just the United States constantly testing the red lines. Pretty sick stuff. So this is why, if you're anti-imperialist, like if you're really resisting the imperial core, we must fight against this nonsense. The messaging of Davos in the ruling class. I might have to say this for next time. We about an hour. I want to keep these episodes to about an hour. So, anything else you want to ask, Zoya? Anything before we get near wrapping up?
There's always like 1,000 receipts left.
We already knew we wasn't gonna get close to getting through them all.
So definitely tune in for the next episode. I just want to say that the working class has not won one election. We're always losing to these people, whether they're gathering in Davos or in the halls of Congress. They're conspiring against the working class. The way that capitalism works is by exploiting others. And with 140 million people food insecure in this country, we can safely say that the current system is not working. So let's all try to focus on what we can do as individuals and in our communities. Every little bit helps. I understand a lot of us are struggling and we're limited on what we can do. But even if it's a conversation to give someone emotional support, or if you can volunteer at a food kitchen, or if you can donate clothes you're no longer using, there's always something that you can do. So please never become apathetic. Do the best that you can and create community around you so that one day we have the organization and power and strength to end this predatory system.
Well said, as always. Zoya is love. Zoya is life. Great to have you on for the first edition of Nick at Night. I'm gonna keep these around 60 minutes to 90 minutes. I got a few stories, but I'm gonna save them for tomorrow. Tomorrow should be a great day. We're gonna have Max Blumenthal. He was supposed to come on today, but we had to reschedule for tomorrow. So Max Blumenthal will be joining me and CJ tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern. We're gonna go through the rest of these stories, talk about a lot of these current events as well. Make sure you guys subscribe. I got a link to the Patreon down below if you enjoy these shows. I'm thinking about making Nick at Night maybe Wednesday and Sunday evening. We see. So I'm gonna try to do this at least once or twice a week. Nick and CJ is great. I love doing my show with CJ. But sometimes we gotta jump on in the evening times with our friends, right? So make sure you guys click the bell so you don't miss the notifications. And I got all the links in the description if you guys want to help us out. I appreciate you guys for listening. Have a good night, my friends. Take care.